the smallest and most affordable Volvo yet. This is the Volvo EX30, and we got the cheapest variant possible and even comes with manual adjusted front seats. Is this EV any good, and is it suitable for long distance drive? As you can tell, this car is quite dirty because I've driven this for more than 1,200 kilometers and also driven it up north close to the border of Thailand. Continue watching to find out more. EX30 is Volvo's smallest EV yet, and this crossover SUV is smaller than the XC40 and C40. So what we have right here is the base variant in Malaysia, the EX30 Plus, that has a prosperous price tag of 188,888 ringgit. In other markets, there's actually a cheaper version that comes with a smaller 51 kWh LFP battery and is fitted with smaller 80-inch wheels. But in Malaysia, all variants come with the larger 69 kWh NMC battery that can provide up to 476 kilometers on a single charge for the single motor variant. And all EX30 in Malaysia are fitted with the larger 19-inch wheels. So whichever spec you take, they all look identical from outside because they have the same trim as well as wheel sizes. So what do you get for getting the Volvo EX30 Plus? For starters, it only gets a single motor at the back, so one motor, which means it's less heavy, so that means better power efficiency. And also, this car is no slouch because that single motor can produce 268 horsepower and 343 Nm of torque. So in terms of performance, you can get from 0 to 100 km/h in just 5.3 seconds, up to a top speed of 180 km/h. So what do you get for getting the cheapest Volvo EX30? Well, you don't get powered seats for the front, you don't get a panoramic glass roof, you don't have pilot park assist, and you also don't get a 360-degree camera. Well, no power seats, I can live with that. No glass roof, not a problem. I think without a glass roof, the cabin is cooler and the aircon doesn't have to work so hard. Park pilot assist, well, I can park myself, not a big deal. But no 360-degree camera? Volvo, really? If you want these four options, you gotta add 20,000 ringgit to get to the EX30 Ultra. If it was me, I'll save that 20,000 ringgit. For the range-topping twin-motor version that offers 422 horsepower and 543 Nm of torque, 0 to 100 is done in just 3.6 seconds, but the range is slightly less at up to 450 km on a single charge. The EX30 Ultra twin-motor costs another 20,000 ringgit. So in total, there are 3 variants and they cost 20,000 ringgit in between. The unit which we have right here comes in cloud blue, which I think looks pretty good in my opinion. It certainly looks more boxy than the jelly bean design of the Smart #1. I really like the looks of it. It's simple and clean. The flat front makes this tall hammer headlight stand out, which kinda reminds me of the Iron Man's mask. Over at the rear, you get these vertical taillights which are split into 2 parts. Overall, it's a handsome looking car. Of course, you get some textured plastic cladding around the back and front and the sides, and some slightly protruding plastic around the wheel arches, which tries to look like mud flaps, but they are not. When it comes to the boot space, it's actually quite decent at 318 liters. And you also have this false floor, which unveils more storage, which you can use to keep your charging cable. And if you fold the rear seats down, you get 904 liters of total storage. And if you're wondering your IKEA shopping will fit, they have this Will It Fit guide which actually highlights the maximum length and height of the cargo storage area. And up front, it comes with a 7-liter frunk, which is quite small. And stepping inside the Volvo EX30, you'll find a very minimalistic design. I would say the design is quite honest. You'll find a mixture of soft touch and hard plastics all around, and I think Volvo has done a good job in giving it contrasting colors and textures to give it a very interesting interior. While obviously cost has been reduced in certain areas of the car, Volvo focuses on giving the key touch points a very premium feel. Like for example, these handles. They are actually made of metal and it's actually cold to touch. And even these armrests, they have these nice soft touch materials. Even the stalks have this nice hefty feel, which feels very chunky, and these symbols are actually illuminated. I just like the storage options in here. Let's look at the door bins. They are quite big over here and they cover with this nice fabric material. And in the center armrest area, you have these retractable storage bins, which doubles as a cup holder for 1 cup holder or 2 cup holder. If you don't want to carry cups, you can actually remove this layer, and this is a huge storage bin. And on the floor over here, you got this double layer storage compartment, which hides the USB-C cables. And if you cover this up, it even has a hole to pass through the charging cables. Over here, you get 2 phone holders. Only one supports wireless charging. This one doesn't do anything. And you have this nifty holder over here to keep your phone in place. And yeah, overall, it's a very nice place to be in. And over the back, you get this removable storage bin, which doubles as a rubbish bin or maybe extra storage compartment. And you got these cute patterns at the sides. And one small compartment which can be used to put your phone while charging. The EX30 also comes with ambient lighting, which comes in various themes, which lights up the center dash area and also the door bins. Unfortunately, there's no ambient lighting for the back, so it's only for the front occupants. And obviously, the biggest thing on the dash is the central 12.3-inch touchscreen display that's laid out in a portrait mode. And this is the screen that controls almost everything about the car, because this is the only screen available in the EX30. Like most other Volvos on sale today, this runs on Android Automotive, and you have built-in Google Maps. That comes in built-in EV road trip planner with estimated battery percentage status upon arrival, and it can also recommend you EV chargers along the way. You also can install other apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Waze, and you can download more apps from the Google Play Store. And yes, if you're using iPhone, it also supports wireless Apple CarPlay. But if you use Waze and Google Maps on Apple CarPlay, you won't get the battery percentage of the vehicle. So I really recommend that you use the built-in maps on the EX30. Navigating around the EX30's UI is pretty straightforward. You have a dedicated button to open the glove box. And by the way, you can set the PIN number through the app, so this can become like your private security box. And to adjust anything else, you just tap on this car button to view your quick controls for various key settings, your car status, you can check your tire pressure and trip meter, and also the settings for the rest of your car, like your pilot assist, your control, sound system connectivity, charging, and more. So everything is done in this clean interface. While the speedo readout is actually bigger than what you get on a Tesla, the other vital information is actually quite small and very hard to notice. For example, they have this like Tesla Vision kind of display that displays cars and pedestrians around you. It's actually quite small and it's located on the left side of the screen, which is actually quite far from your usual vision while driving. And also, if there's any alerts like pay attention on the road or keep a safe distance from the car in front of you, it only appears as a very small text underneath here. So it's not very obvious while you're driving. And one of my pet peeves about driving EV is that it doesn't show the actual efficiency numbers while driving. So while driving, you only can see a speedo, and that's pretty much it. If you want to know how well you're driving, like in terms of kilowatt hour per 100 km, you need to tap over here, car status, and then tap on trip meter to get your current consumption readout. And if you do this, you don't get to see the map, which is annoying. Why can't they show the readout over here? The only way to do so is if you leave the car to park, and then it will display up here, so you don't show it here while driving. Hopefully Volvo can fix this in the next software update, because I really want to see this while driving, and I think most EV drivers want to know this as well, right? And one thing interesting about EX30, you get this rather squarish steering wheel, which looks kind of odd, but it feels okay to drive. I kind of like this design. I get used after a while. And as you can see, there's no instrument cluster, there's no heads-up display, so you need to rely on the screen to see how fast you're driving. And thankfully, they did not copy Tesla, so they still maintain the stock speedometer indicator, which also controls the high beam and the wiper function. And you also got a traditional gear selector stop, P, reverse neutral drive, and you push it down to enable adaptive cruise control. In terms of steering wheel controls, well, you get 2 large buttons with capacitive sensors. So on the right side, this control your media controls, your voice assistant through Google Assistant, And this is also used to adjust your side mirrors and to make any confirmations with the driver settings. And on the left side is for your pilot assist, so you can adjust your cruise control, adaptive cruise control, whether it's with lane centering assist or without. So you can see that these are actually adaptive buttons, because if you capacity buttons, so if you touch it, you can see the buttons are actually being registered. Yep, you can see there, it's happening on the screen, it's actually registered. So only when you press, then activate. So it's a combination of a physical button, one piece, and capacitive buttons over here. But you see over here, right, it's actually quite empty. There's no buttons over here. So with the Volvo EX30, you can actually activate the adaptive cruise control. This to adjust the speed in increments of 5 km per hour, and this to enable lane centering assist or not, and this to adjust the display. The display, you want to see this display or this display. So that's the option. You also can program this button to trigger one pedal driving mode or not. You can actually change the shortcut. Over here is blank. I wish that Volvo has included buttons over here to adjust the distance for adaptive cruise control, because sometimes depends on the driving situation. You want to close the gap or you want to increase the gap depending on the speed you drive. And when it comes to sound, the EX30 is different from other cars because typically you have speakers mounted on the individual doors. For the EX30, for cost cutting or for simple design, it features a single piece Harman Kardon soundbar in front. They sound pretty good for a soundbar. It's actually quite impressive that you get this level of fidelity from a single piece. The bass is actually pretty good. But I find that, you know, it's still very front biased, so it's not as, I won't say it's as good as the Harman Kardon speakers on the BMW iX1. But for this kind of level, for one piece speaker, it's pretty good. And there's also surround settings for you to play around, so you can actually adjust the sound system to be biased to the driver or for rear occupants, or you can do it for all, for more balanced hearing. And there's this quantum logic surround, so I think it adds reverb to make that surround effect, so you can adjust low, medium, high. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Speaking of sound, there's one small complaint that I have, and that's the signal indicator sound. So we'll do this. It's actually pretty soft. If you're going to blast your music, right, it's hard to tell whether the signal light is on or off because it's just too soft and there's no way to adjust the volume of the signal indicator sounds. And if you listen to the sound, it sounds like the sound coming from the PC speaker from an old 486 desktop computer, don't you think? Okay, I just want to go back to the door again. So the door literally is just a door. You get just a handle over here, an armrest, and there's no speakers, there's nothing. You get these large door bins, but what you notice that there are no controls for the side mirror because it's done through the screen. There's no controls for the power windows because it's done over here on the central part here. So you got left and right buttons, these small buttons, and to adjust the rear windows, you gotta press rear first and then make adjustment. I mean, come on. I mean, even Tesla gave proper power windows on the doors, but here they make it central, and yet they skim further by not giving you dedicated rear power window controls. This is just a slight annoyance, but honestly I don't adjust the rear window as much, but it'd be nice to have 4 dedicated buttons over here. Over on the back, you also get 2 buttons for the rear windows for the rear passengers. Yes, air conditioning, something very important for Malaysians. So on the Volvo EX30, you only have aircon for the front, and you have these vertical style aircon vents over here. And one complaint I have is that the vents that's closer to the door, left and right, the angle isn't that much. This is how much adjustability that you have. So even I put to the extreme left, it only blows up to here. It doesn't blow to your face. It's hard to get the wind blowing to your face. So even I adjust this, okay, this is actually quite close to my face, but not directly. And if you set to auto, well, it's not that strong. So even high in auto, right, the fan's not that strong. I guess to preserve energy, but heck, this is not even eco mode. So if you want to save more energy, you need to tap on eco. So that will actually tone down the compressor a bit to save more energy. Yeah, now it's getting softer. So if you want full blast, you need to go to manual and adjust all the way. And this is where you get full blast. But in auto, yeah, it's actually quite limited. So yeah, in terms of adjustability, quite limited. Luckily, this is just the base spec model without a glass roof. So if you have the one with a glass roof, I think you need to turn up the aircon to keep the cabin cool. And for the front seats, I must say that they are actually very good. They're quite well designed. You have this leatherette material, which I believe is vegan leather, and a mixture of fabric, which is actually pretty good. And I've sat at this seat for about 10 hours on my drive to Perlis, and they are very supportive. They're not as plushy as the BYDs, but they're very supportive. So I have no issue sitting in this car for more than 10 hours for a long road trip. At the back, well, that's a different story. I'm going to talk about that later. As I've mentioned earlier, this is the base spec model, so you get manual adjusted seats, so you can pull this metal lever to adjust the sliding, to adjust the height, and also to adjust the recline with another lever at the back over here. So yeah, not really an issue. I just wish that it comes with ventilated seats, so that would be very cool during long distance drives. The thing that's not so good about the EX30 is the rear seats. I'm 180 centimeters tall, and I have the driver's seat adjusted to my ideal driving position, and yeah, you can see that there's not much space for me. My knee is actually quite digging into the seat in front, and it's actually quite upright over here. There's no adjustability for the recline, and to be honest, the BYD M6, the third row, is actually more comfortable for me compared to the rear of the EX30. So this car is more suited to carry children at the back. For adults, maybe for a short distance drive, but for long distance, yeah, there are other better cars that can give greater comfort. And to make matters worse, there are no real aircon vents over here, so everything's reliant on the front aircon vents. When it comes to ADAS systems like adaptive cruise control, it's very easy to activate using the gear selector stock or from the push buttons on the steering wheel. You just have a choice of adaptive cruise control with lane centering or without lane centering assist, and this car also comes with rear cross traffic alerts. When it comes to adaptive cruise control, I feel that it's just one step below the likes of Mercedes, BMW and Tesla, because when it comes to handling sudden dynamic traffic situations like a car cuts into you in the last minute, I think this needs a little bit more refinement compared to other brands, but it's still up there above average compared to other brands, especially from China. The lack of the 360-degree camera didn't bother me that much. After all, this is a very small SUV, and the reverse camera is actually pretty clear. The one thing that I miss is that if only Volvo has added the auto tilt function for the side mirrors, so when you reverse, I wish that the side mirrors can tilt slightly down so that I can see what's behind me and I don't curb the rims. So hopefully Volvo can add that as a feature in the future software update. I've driven the Smart #1, the #3 and very briefly the Zeekr X, and I must say that I like the EX30 the most. It feels very light, it feels very nimble, and the suspension is well balanced. It's not too stiff and yet it's still very comfortable for long distance drive. So in a way, if you're feeling naughty, you can check this around very confidently and you're going to drive this on long distance trip. It's very comfortable as well. I think this is like the Goldilocks of the compact EV segment. And driving this at highway speeds, the wind noise is actually quite minimal. We do hear some tire noise, but after all, this car isn't using any EV specific tires. It's actually using Goodyear Efficient Grip Performance SUV, the same tires that you get on the Proton E-Max 7 Premium. But of course, the tire ratio is slightly different for this EX30. And let's talk about regen, because this EV is different from your typical EV. Because for starters, there's no drive mode, there's no Eco, Sports or Normal. It's just a standard mode. So you can drive this normally, sensibly in the city. And if you want more power, you just need to put your foot down strongly to get the maximum performance. So you get instant power on tap when you need to. And when it comes to regen, there are no regen settings. There's no low or strong regen like other EVs. So it's a standard, and the only setting is one pedal drive, which translates to one pedal driving. And for my experience, one pedal drive isn't one pedal enough. The regen is so weak, it feels like standard regen on a BYD Dolphin. I just wish it's a little bit stronger. And because the regen is so light, if you drive an EV before, you expect it to stop at a certain point, but if you use this car, it stops a couple of feet away from where you intend it to stop. It's somewhat similar to the Smart #1 and the Smart #3, but less annoying. At least the regen here is more predictable, so it's less annoying. So the way I see it is that if you've never driven an EV before, you're completely fine. This is actually very easy to drive. But if you've driven EV before and you expect the one-pedal drive to behave like the typical one-pedal driving, well, you need to adjust a little bit. But overall, this car is very effortless to drive and it's quite easy to get used to. And I think I need to highlight is that when you charge this car to 100%, the EX30 doesn't give you any regen at all. Zero regen. So at first, when I charged this car to 100%, I thought the one pedal drive button was broken because there's no difference, there's no regen at all. And it's only when I realized that if the battery drops to 98% or less, then you start to get a little bit regen. I mean, come on Volvo, I mean, you should at least notify users or show an alert that regen is not available, but it didn't. So at first, I thought that something's wrong with the car. So the fact is that if the battery is fully charged, they will not give any regen because it doesn't want to overcharge the battery. As a comparison on a Tesla, if you charge it 100%, you do get an extra red icon on the side of the screen that tells you that regen is limited when you tap on it. At least it gives you that information. And at least for Tesla, it still gives you that regen sensation. So what it does is it actually applies more physical brakes to simulate a regen-like experience. So at least the user experience is similar. So maybe Volvo can learn a thing or two for Tesla in this implementation so that, you know, let users know what's actually happening so that they don't get caught unaware like how I did. So yeah, if there's no regen, maybe show an alert that okay, regen is unavailable, wait until you drive the battery down to 98%. Maybe that will be helpful. The steering is light, the brake is pretty good. It's a very capable city car. Definitely much better than the Smart #1, that's for sure. All EX30 sold in Malaysia supports 3-phase 11 kW AC charging. So if you want to charge from 0 to 100%, it takes less than 8 hours, which is okay for overnight charging. If you rely on public AC chargers, you're probably looking at charging maybe 2 to 3 hours, maybe once or twice a week, depending on your driving mileage. When it comes to DC, it supports up to 175 kW of DC fast charging. And from our experience, well, you can get from 10 to 80% in just half an hour. And during a road trip to Perlis, we did a couple of short top-ups like 15-20 minutes, which gives us about maybe 20 to 50% charge or 45 to 75% charge, depending on the DC fast charging rate. So charging is really not a really big issue over here. Of course, it's not as fast as an 800-volt EV. When it comes to EV driving efficiency, during a road trip up from KL to Ipoh to Alor and to Perlis, we did an efficiency rating of 14.6 kWh per 100 km. So if you look at that number, you're looking at probably about 400 to 450 kilometers of range on a single charge if you drive sensibly like us. And of course, in that situation, there's a lot of traffic congestion. So it took us about 10 hours of driving in total to stop in Ipoh and Alor before we reached Padang Besar in Perlis. On our way back from Penang to KL with clear roads and with more spirited driving, the efficiency figures is higher. We did 19 kWh per 100 km. So if you want to drive fast with clear roads, you're probably looking at about 350 kilometers on a single charge. So it really depends on your driving style. But on average, I think 400 kilometers to 420 is a more realistically figure for long distance driving. If you're looking at driving very fast on the highway, I would say that the Tesla Model Y is actually more efficient. If you drive at a similar speed, I reckon that I'm going to get probably 16 kWh per 100 km, and that's because the Tesla Model Y, despite being a bigger car, it has a drag coefficient of just 0.23 CD, and the EX30, the drag coefficient is 0.28 CD. So that makes a huge difference when driving at more than 100 km per hour. So the Tesla Model Y, yeah, is more efficient if you want to drive at faster speeds. But while driving in the city, like for day-to-day drive from home to work, I get between 12 to 15 kWh per 100 km. So that means if you just drive purely in the city, you can probably match the advertised WLTP rating of 469 kWh per 100 km. And the lowest I got driving to work was 12 kilowatt hour per 100 km. So based on that figure alone, I could get 500 kilometers on a single charge. But the reality is that if you stay in the Klang Valley, it's not always city driving. You're going to have a mix of highway driving, so with higher speed, you're going to have a little bit balance in terms of the actual range you're going to get. So realistically, like I said, I reckon you should be able to get 400 to 430 kilometers of range on a single charge. Another thing worth mentioning is the Volvo EX30 app. It has a very clean design which lets you view the current status, including range, battery, charging levels, including the ability to adjust the max charging limit remotely. Another thing that I like is a driving journal, which provides a stats for every trip you make. It's like the Uber receipt where it shows the map of the trip, the distance travel, efficiency, and even how much energy you consume for the trip. It's pretty close to the My BMW app, but it lacks extra details like battery state of charge before and after the trip, and also average speeds. Another feature that I wish Volvo included is the charging stats, like for example the charging curve, how much you've charged, and possibly a calculation on how much it costs to run your EX30 on a month-to-month basis. That's something that BMW has, and I wish Volvo includes it in the app in the future. And that's something I want to talk about. Something that I don't talk about in other videos is the key. So Volvo provides a two key. You have like a access card, like a smart key similar to Tesla, and so this key fob, which doesn't come with any buttons at all. So what this does is, if you have this key in your pocket, when you walk close to the car, it will unlock the car. If you walk away, it will lock the car. But there are no buttons. I wish there are some physical control buttons to lock and unlock the car, and maybe one button to open the boot remotely, but I don't have that. And you know what? Doing the review, halfway through, the battery in this thing died. So I can't unlock the car with this remote. So now I need to rely on this card to tap on the B pillar and then leave it on the charging pad to start the car. And I did a check online, right? So apparently I think there's an issue with this card. So if you check online, they said if your battery drains in just a couple of months, this key fob requires a software update at the dealership. So for now, it needs replaced. You need to pry open this thing, and then you have this coin over here, which is actually quite hard to remove. It's a coin that uses the CR2450 standard. It's different from the other coin batteries they use for the AirTag. So it's a different size, and yeah, it's just weird that this doesn't come with any buttons. You can also unlock the car using the Volvo EX30 app. But unfortunately, the app's only used to lock and unlock the car. It doesn't allow you to start the car. So what I've read so far is that Volvo will actually enable the digital key function in the app. So you can actually start the car using the app, similar to the Tesla app, I guess. But that's only coming in a software update that's released later. Overall, I really like the Volvo EX30. It's one of the most fun EVs I've driven so far. The only thing is that the boots, okay, it's pretty decent. The seats are pretty small, not big enough for adults, and I feel that Volvo has taken its minimalism or maybe cost cutting a little bit too far. I think the very least is that they should include an instrument cluster or even a head-up display. And also the user interface, yes, it's simple, but I feel that there's a lot of improvements that can be made. Like for example, always showing the efficiency figures while driving, and also to make the driver alerts more prominent so that the drivers can actually read it easily while driving. But the biggest challenge for the EX30 is the price, because right now there's a lot of competitive EVs that's priced under 200,000 ringgit. If you want space, the Tesla Model Y starts from 191,000 ringgit. That EV is huge, and you also get a lot of efficiency as well. And if you want something different and cheaper, there's also the BYD Seal Liar 7 that priced from 184,000 ringgit, and you get more than 500 kilometers of range on a single charge. You want faster charging? Well, there's also the Xiaopeng G6, and the long range model costs from 185,000 ringgit. So there's so many options out there that competes with the likes of the EX30 in the same price bracket. Even if you look at the same Geely SEA platform that's shared across other cars in the group, you can get the Zeekr X that offers Smart H1 Bravo's levels of performance for only 175,000 ringgit. That's even cheaper than this base-spec EX30, which is mind-blowing. Another downside is that EX30 lacks vehicle to load, or V2L. It's a feature that literally converts the EV into a giant power bank so they can power home appliances, which is very useful while camping or if there's a blackout in your home. But if you look at this EV from a purely premium standpoint, yeah, it's one of the most affordable EVs out there. It's the cheapest Volvo you can get. It's fun, it's nimble, and it's one of those cars that I have heavily hearted to give it back to the brand. Personally, if I'm going to spend money on a compact SUV, I'll probably go for the Smart Hatchback one or the Zeekr X, because not only those cars have vehicle to load, you also get a larger space for the back with rear aircon vents. You also get more toys like instrument cluster and even heads-up display, which is something that this EV lacks. But what do you think? Will you get the EX30 over anything else? Let us know in the comment section down below. This is Alex from soyachincha.com. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, like us on Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe us on our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell icon so that you'll be informed of future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next one. Bye!